Say you just played this lick in a solo. What do you do next? Do you develop that idea and play new things based on that same lick? Or do you go to something completely different and play new licks? In this lesson, I'm going to explore these two answers to that question. I will usually use a blend of these two approaches. Develop an idea for a while and then abandon it and go to something new. But sometimes when practicing, it can be interesting to just try playing a whole solo using one of them. What you heard in the opening of this video was me developing that first blues lick I played over the whole solo I played over this funky blues track in F. Next I'm going to play a solo using the other approach, playing new licks the whole time and not developing ideas at all. After I played this second solo, I'm going to explain the techniques I used to develop the blues lick in the first solo I played. The first thing I did to develop this blues lick was use rhythmic displacement and creative repetition. Rhythmic displacement just means starting the lick at another point of the bar. The first blues lick was played on the and of 3, like this, 1, 2, 3. For the second time I played it, I started on the second 16th note of the first beat of the bar. 3, 4, 1. But I also used creative repetition. Creative repetition, by the way, is a subject I've made several lessons on YouTube before, so if you're interested, check that out as well. Creative repetition just means repeating one or more notes of the lick. I can repeat the first one, or the second one, but I can also repeat groups of notes, and that's what I did here. I repeated the first 2 notes of the lick, these 2, and that gives me... But I also repeated the 2 notes before the last note, those 2. And if I put the rhythmic displacement and the 2 uses of creative repetition together, I get this. Most of what I'm playing in this lesson, by the way, is using the F minor pentatonic scale in the 4th position. But I'm also using a few chord tones and other scales along the way. Then on the 3rd variation, I use approach note patterns. Approach note patterns are ways of approaching a target note. Here I'm starting by approaching the first note of the lick, this one. And I play a whole step above the target note, a half step above the target note, a half step below, and then landing on the target. So I'm circling around the target and finally hitting it. But in addition to approaching the first note of the lick, I also approach the 4th note by a half step below. This note will be approached by this one. If I put those 2 approaches together, I get this. Then instead of going to the last note of the lick, this one, I'm going a half step down instead to hit the 3rd of the next chord of the blues. The next chord is a B flat 7. And since I'm already playing a chord tone, I end up also playing a few more chord tones. And and then I just play something else, just to complete the phrase. Now on the fourth variation I play of this lick, I also use sequencing. Sequencing just means playing a melodic idea through a scale. So instead of starting on this note, I can start a note lower and get this. Or start on this note. Or start on this one. The relationship between the notes stay the same, but the note I'm starting on in the scale changes. Here I sequence the lick one step down the scale, so instead of playing, I get. But I also remove the first note of the lick, giving me this. And then I approach both the second and third notes by a half step below each, giving me this. But I also lower the last note to hit the third of the B flat chord again, giving me this. And I approach that note by a half step as well. And with everything of this added together, I get this. This might sound a bit too complex to do in the moment, but if you practice these things enough, they will come out naturally in your playing and you don't have to think about it at all. Then for the next variation of the lick, I sequence it once more down another step of the scale. Remember, I started here. And if I go one step down the scale, another step down the scale, I get that. I also approach the fourth note of this sequence lick with a half step from below. That one by this. This gives me. Then I end the solo by just playing a few other things. If you want to know more about the techniques I used to develop this lick throughout this solo, check out my other lessons here on YouTube, or check out my book Improvising with Motives, that is all about this kind of stuff. You'll find a link in the description below.